Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'll be reacting to another reaction request, video request. Why are there so many Filipino nurses in the US? I mean, that's true. I actually heard that there are lots and lots of, you know, nurses that comes from the Philippines. Most um, ladies go for, you know, a career in nursing, and I really don't know why that is. And I heard that there are a lot of Filipino nurses in the US, even in Canada. So it would be really interesting to see why there are so many Filipino nurses. I think that's a very interesting topic to look into. So let's get started.
Immigrants, we get the job done, or so the song goes. So we all know that when it comes to labor, the United States loves immigrants. And one of the most unique stories of American immigration and labor actually comes from the Philippines. In particular, it's the story of Filipino women who became nurses throughout the country's hospitals. Hey guys, I'm Sana, this is AJ Plus, and this Sunday I want to talk a bit about why there are so many Filipino nurses in the United States and what that says about the history of Filipino Americans and Filipino labor. Okay, so you might be saying, Sana, the US has a lot of Filipino nurses? Yep. Here's what's up. Back in 2015, foreign-born Filipinos made up the fourth largest group of immigrants in the country. And the majority of Filipinos are in California, where they make up 20% of the nursing force, which is impressive when you consider that they only make up about 4% of the state's population. Now, it's easy to think of the Philippines as all the way over there, and the United States right over here. But Dr. Catherine Sneeza Choi, who wrote the book Empire of Care, says that imagining Filipinos as simply foreigners actually erases a history between the countries.
Filipinos, and specifically certain groups of Filipino immigrant workers, like immigrant nurses, are not foreigners in the way we tend to think about foreigners. They actually have historical interaction with Americans.
And that interaction begins like so many other immigrant interactions, with colonization. The Spanish colonized and ruled the archipelago we now call the Republic of the Philippines for a few centuries. In 1898, the Americans and the Spanish went to war, and it ended with the signing of the Treaty of Paris. As a result, the Americans got a lot of territories from the Spanish, one of which was the Philippines. But the people of the islands didn't welcome the Americans. They wanted their independence, not more colonizers. That resistance led to the 3-year-long Philippines-American War from 1899 to 1902, and it was fought between U.S. forces and Filipino nationalists. And it was a brutal war for Filipinos. It killed 20,000 combatants and 200,000 civilians as a result of the violence, diseases like cholera and malaria, and even famine. When the war ended, the Philippines came under the colonial control of the United States. And that's when the story of the Filipino nurses begins. Like in its other colonies, the United States began the Americanization of the islands after setting up a government in the Philippines.
You also had American colonial officials going to the Philippines and exposing Filipinos to American culture, to the English language, to Americanized education. And this kind of training influenced so many different groups of Filipinos to dream about the U.S. and to desire to migrate there.
American health workers in the Philippines needed locals to deal with the health issues of Filipinos because malaria and cholera had killed so many during the war. But they didn't find any nurses trained the way the Americans had been trained. And so they began recruiting Filipino women to work as what were called volunteer auxiliary and contract nurses. Around the same time in 1903, President William Taft passed a law that allowed and funded certain Filipino students to study in American colleges. And this led to the first wave of Filipino nurses coming to the United States, and it also led to a lot of the nurses staying. They even established their presence with organizations like the Philippine Nurses Association of New York, and the waves of Filipino nurse migration continued throughout the 20th century, especially as the United States opened up its borders a bit more. During World War II, more Filipino nurses were trained to serve in the U.S. military, and during the same time, the Philippines came under Japanese occupation. After the war ended, the United States granted the territory independence in 1946, and 2 years later, the State Department introduced the Exchange Visitor Program, a little something created to push back against Soviet influence. You know, bring more people into the United States and show them what the capitalist good life is actually all about. Because of the decades-long colonial relationship and education in English language, the Philippines became a model country for the program, and the nurses led the way.
Yeah.
The program was so successful that it actually encouraged more Filipinos to go into nursing. The number of nurses in the Philippines jumped over 700%, from 7,000
Wow.
in 1948 to over 57,000 in 1953.
That's
The
a
program
lot.
also encouraged the building of more nursing schools in the Philippines. Back in 1940, there were only 10, and today, 429. That program, in addition to the 1965 Immigration Act, opened up the borders even more for educated Filipinos. And so by 1973, we
Interesting.
end up seeing over 12,000 Filipino nurses immigrate to the United States. But I gotta mention this, it wasn't just because of American immigration policies that so many Filipinos were migrating to the US. In the 1970s, with President Ferdinand Marcos, who ruled under martial law, a policy of labor export was introduced. The whole idea behind the export of labor was that Filipinos would travel abroad on work contracts, make money, send it back home, and thus help a struggling economy. The government even created an agency
okay.
that directly provided migrant labor to foreign governments and companies. That policy pretty much made the Philippines one of the top exporters of labor. I mean, check this. About 10% of all Filipinos are foreign workers. That's around 10 million people in around 170
Wow.
different countries. And did the
That's
policy
a
of
lot.
exporting labor actually work for the economy? Well, for decades, the Philippines has been one of the top 5 recipients of money transfers from migrant labor. Shout out to Western Union. Not sponsored. Take, for instance, how in 2015, over 3 million Filipinos left the country to work abroad. They sent back $28.5 billion, which made up about a
Damn.
tenth of the Philippines' total GDP. So exported
That's a
labor is a
lot.
big deal for the Philippines, and it really does get to the heart of the Filipino immigrant experience, whether in a country like Saudi Arabia or in the United States. And it's equally important to note that despite the so-called success of the export of Filipino labor, it's come with a lot of sacrifice, struggle, and vulnerability. Take, for example, Filipino nurses here in the United States who are professionals but still face discrimination.
The vulnerability of being immigrant nurses can also be connected to being exploited by being assigned sometimes the most undesirable kinds of work on the nursing floor, or being assigned on the most undesirable shifts. Unfortunately, they are not
That's
the
really
kinds of
sad.
challenges we often think about in the United States that these women would have because they are professional immigrant workers.
But even though exported or imported labor is central to Filipino migration, especially to the United States, that's not the only part of the Filipino immigrant experience. In the United States, Filipinos, both citizens and immigrants, have used their experiences to fight for workers' rights. In fact, one of the biggest labor movements in the United States was sparked by Filipino laborers. In 1965, Filipino grape farm workers in Delano, California, went on strike against poor working conditions and low wages. Farm workers across the country joined in on the strike, which eventually led to an international boycott of grapes. The 5-year strike ended with a major win for the farm workers. They got union contracts that protected them. So Filipinos,
Wow.
immigrants, and citizens have been and remain a central part of the U.S.'s social fabric. They've not only provided labor in industries that needed it the most, but at times have also protected it. So we just covered Filipino nurses in the United States, and we've also talked in the past about Indian.
Wow, that is really, really eye-opening and interesting. I mean, I had an idea of what the reasons might be, but obviously the colonization must have played, and it really played a big part in the reason why there are so many, nurses in the U.S. And I think the way it is that most colonized countries tend to, want to migrate to the country that colonized them. And that is how it has always been, because you tend to, you were colonized by them, obviously. You tend to relate to their culture, you tend to relate to their, the way of living and everything. So it makes sense that most colonized, country, that their citizens will want to move to those countries. And seeing the fact that those countries are more economically, stable, they're more advanced, and then that's even more incentive. But in this particular case, the reason why there are so many nurses, it's now really, really clear, and it's really eye-opening for me. But something that I didn't like is the fact that they are not treating them as equals. I mean, if they had the same level of training, they are offering the same services, they are doing everything that the other nurses are doing, they should be treated equally. I see no reason why there should be discriminations and all those things. But I guess that's just life. Life isn't fair. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't, like and comment, and I'll see you all